Hey there, give me 1 second and hopefully there we are. Hey, I think we did it. How's everybody doing today? A little bit of a weird setup for me. I'm in the middle of moving, so crazy deal. But anyways, glad to be here. Glad to be talking to everybody here, both on Zoom and YouTube. Let me just double check my YouTube channel here and make sure that that's going well. Looks like it is. Fantastic. So we've got our Zoom thing going, got YouTube going. How's everybody doing today? A little bit of a there we go. And we've got an echo there too. But anyways, if you have questions for me, put them in the chat on either stream and I will get to those questions super quick for you. Today, let me just check something else out here. Just give me one more second since I actually, I'm so proud of myself. I actually did this. Yes, you can ask me questions. Please ask me questions. So anyways, ask any questions that you have. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And we can take it from there. So ask me any questions you want. And we'll get started here. Just one more second. Apologize for my technical challenges here, but I'm pretty much ready to go here. I just need to do one more thing and I should be ready. There we go, my channel. One more second. Hope everybody's having a great day. I know I am. So anyways, let's see. There we are. And that was exactly what I was hoping for. So fantastic. Okay, so we're ready to go. So if you have any questions for me, please ask them on the chat box in Zoom, ask them on the chat in YouTube if you want. Either way, we are ready to go. So let's go. Just one more thing. There we are. I think this will work. Let's see if it does or not. No, it didn't. Okay, that didn't work. So okay, anyways, I think we got the questions ready to go. So anyways, let's get started. So the first question I have is, do VCs vacation in August? And this is like this is kind of like this general question and this myth that investors take like the whole summer off. Both angel investors and venture capitalists, they all take the whole summer off. And the question really revolves around, what should you do? You know, should you just stop raising money in the summer? What should you do? And here's my answer to you. First, yeah, there are probably more people taking vacations in the summer than not, just like we all do, right? But things don't stop. They just go a little bit slower. And if you're planning on raising money, my view is whenever you're ready to start, you start. And you just understand that things are going to go a little slower. I had the same challenges when I was raising money. I was able to raise money in the summer. I got term sheets in the summer, just things went slower. You know, for example, this one investor, Tucker, who invested in our B round, he went on vacation for a couple of weeks right before he was going to give us a term sheet. So I kept going with other investors. That's what you do. So just keep going, keep moving, keep getting your questions answered. That's the best way to go on all of these things. That's my humble suggestion here. So don't stop, keep moving, and people come back from vacations, people get things done. So that's what I would do. Okay, second question. I'm going on the Zoom questions first, by the way, that I already have. So Zoom questions get priority, just so everybody knows. And the way that you can get priority on these questions is join my free group. Join the free group. There should be a link somewhere on my YouTube site to that. If you're on my email list, pretty much every email, I'm promoting the free site, and it's free for life. So take advantage of it. Be smart. So anyways, that's what I would do. So go ahead and take advantage of that, please. It'll help you out. So, and you get priority on this, plus there are a lot of other goodies in there for you. And you can learn about my paid site as well, where you get even more goodies and you go even faster on building your businesses. Okay, next question. Do 409A valuations help price your company? The answer is no, with investors. Let me add that other piece in, with investors. And the answer is no, they don't. And let me explain the reason why. 409A valuations are kind of like this necessary evil that eventually you have to do, in terms of pricing what the valuation is of your stock options, essentially. It's very important for that. And I can't stand them because they're so ridiculously variable and they're not accurate at all. And investors will, full stop, will not take them into consideration at all. Not one bit. So what does it tell you? Just it tells you, if you tell an investor, hey, my 409A valuation says we should be valued at $50 million. My discounted cash flow analysis says $65 million. Therefore, you should just take the average of those two, and that should be the valuation. They're going to politely figure out their own valuation. I did a video on this, which you can find, about valuation methodologies. The only one that matters at some level is comparable companies to yours. If you can find the valuations of somebody that's been financed in the same round as yours, that's going to carry a lot more weight than any discounted cash flow that you do or 409A valuation that you do. So just forget those. Not going to work. Okay, so anyways, I just wouldn't do that at all if I was in your shoes. Okay, next question. And this is a really good one. I think I get this question, or a variation of this question, just about every week that I do these AMAs. This one is, should I give a down payment to investors? In other words, an investor says, hey, I want to invest in your company, but before I do diligence, can you give me a valuation of whatever the number is, $15,000, $20,000? Okay, here's the answer to this. When you hear people asking for money and they're an investor, before they give you money, the red lights should be blinking red. Do not do this. You will lose your money. It is a scam. I would say 99 times out of 100. I can't even think of the 1 out of 100 where it's not a scam. Just don't do it. You're going to regret it. You're going to lose your money. Investors, do not ask for money up front from startups. They will. It's kind of this weird thing that happens in diligence. For example, if you raise money from venture capitalists in the United States, like, for example, when I raised my Series A round of 12 million, our investors asked us to pay their legal fees as part of the closing costs. Okay, as part of the closing costs, but they wired us the money first. So in other words, we got wired our $12 million, and then whatever our closing costs were on the legal fees, which I think we had capped and we had an agreement on this. I don't know what they were, $25,000, $30,000, whatever they were. Yeah, sure, we'll go pay that. I don't agree with it, but it's a little different than saying, hey, pay everything up front, pay us $50,000, and we will, then we'll go ahead and do our diligence. No, don't do it. Please don't do it. You will regret it if you do that. It is a scam just about every single time. So please don't do that. There are variations of this scam, by the way. I can think of one in particular. It was amazing to me how many different companies tried to woo us on this one. Once we started getting traction in the marketplace and our name got known, we would have these weird film companies come on and say, hey, we want to feature you. I can't even remember the name of the program, but it was something that sounded really familiar. But, in order to cover our costs, can you pay us, for all these fees? It's like, oh, there is no legitimate company out there that is going to do an interview with you and ask you to pay. Same thing. So there's all sorts of scams out there. Beware. Okay. Next question. How do you pitch when your product fits multiple markets? In other words, here's the question. I have a product that can fit in multiple markets and I want to attack all of them over time. So how do I pitch my company? Especially as an early stage startup. Okay, here's the goal. You want to pick a market at first. You have to pick something to start with. Whatever you think is the best market that you're going to win at, that's the one that you go with at the beginning. Don't pick 3 markets, don't pick 2 markets, pick a market. Say, this is our starting point. This is our served market is this. Then we're going to go attack these other markets. That's our vision. Hopefully that works and hopefully that answers your question for you. Okay, let's move on. If you have questions for me on Zoom, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom. And if you have questions on YouTube, you can put them there. Let's go and do this. Okay, so here we go. So the question Julian asks, what do you do? What happened to Julian's question? There it is. Okay. What do you do when you feel that things are not moving forward as you think they should? Meaning employees are lazy, investors don't move, etc. Did you ever feel that way? Well, certainly about investors, because dealing with investors is maddening, I would tell you. Okay, let's deal with the employee thing first. If you have employees that are lazy, that aren't into it, you're the CEO. What do you think you should do with those employees? It's pretty simple. If they're not working out well, you ask them to move on. If you can't get them moving, this is part of company culture. And if you have a bunch of lazy employees that aren't working hard, there's something wrong. And you have to fix that something wrong. It's either you're not motivating your people right, they don't know what to do, or the more likely answer is the employees aren't that good and they're not into what you're doing. And if they're not into what you're doing and they're not working hard, then you need other employees. It happens. The investor question, that is so broad that without a detailed conversation, it's almost impossible for me to answer, because there can be so many different reasons why investors aren't moving. For example, it could be that you're too early in the process for investors to be excited about what you're doing. It could be that your pitch isn't very good, so therefore investors aren't moving. I don't know the answer. It's really difficult without a huge amount more information. Okay. I don't know how to answer this question of Darren's. When I hover over chat, your video shuts down. I have no idea what that's about. If you're on YouTube, I have no control over what YouTube does. So I don't know. Okay. Zoom not working, gold. Okay, Zoom should be working. It's working for me. But you're on YouTube. Okay, Waleed asks, what is the best way evaluation of a startup with just a prototype? Aha. Okay, so this is kind of like the same question I got asked earlier about different valuation methods. Okay, early stage, when you have a prototype, by the way, valuation, especially early stage valuations, typically are very mechanical. So for example, if you're raising $100,000, it's a small amount of money in relatively, I know it's a huge amount of money, but it's a small amount of money. Let's say you're raising $100,000. What is that typically going to be in terms of how much equity are you going to give up? I would say probably roughly 10%. So your post-money valuation is going to be $1 million. It's very simple math. Whether you have a prototype or not is irrelevant. You know, the same company with revenue, without revenue. Let's say we're doing $2 million a year in revenue. What's my company worth? That's a great question, right? Well, in different scenarios, that company could be worth $1 million, $2 million, $20 million, $100 million, or even $1 billion. It's all a matter of the potential of the company. A lot of that determines valuation. It's also about how much money you're raising and what percentage of the company can I, as an investor, get. That determines valuation. I have a video on this. If you look on my website, you should be able to find it on this basic subject of valuation. In fact, we've done various videos on this subject. Okay. AS asks, I have a tech startup that is go-to-market ready that has been self-funded for 2.5 years. We have customers on board and are ready to seek investors. Should one use a finder broker to facilitate? Aha, this is yet another variation of the same question about, this is a little bit different, but this is a classic thing. Should I use brokers? Buyer beware, be very, very, very careful if you're using brokers. Because if we're talking here in the United States, and we're trying to raise money from especially venture capitalists and brokers in the middle of it, probably not going to go too well. They do not like giving away part of their company to a broker. So be very, very, very careful with this. What I would say is if you're going to, there's a little bit of a joke here about this, but I heard this story from one of my investors where he helped another VC get a company. He recommended the company and made the introduction, and he got a bottle of wine. He said they made a whole bunch of money and I got a bottle of wine. And the analogy here is if you're giving away more than a bottle of wine for an introduction, you're probably giving away too much. So be really careful with this. I know in Europe it's a little bit different, but still be really careful about how much of your company you're giving away, because you can really hurt your chances of raising money. What I have seen over and over and over again is that if you have a great idea and you start networking really hard, you will be able to find money. Okay. Let me see the next question. We have a 95-5 equity split option where we allow investors to double their money before our 5% distribution. Think we can get funded? I don't know enough, but it sounds like a weird deal. So one of the things that I would do if I'm raising money is you want to keep things as simple as possible, as standard as possible. The minute you start adding in things that create friction in a deal that aren't standard, like what this fellow Andrew is describing here of a 95-5 equity split, and they get their money back, they get to double their money or whatever. That's not a normal deal. So no, I don't know whether that's going to work. And it's different than normal, so I wouldn't recommend doing it. Keep it simple, make it easy, reduce the friction. This is high stakes selling we're doing here. If you think about this, if you're raising $1 million, it's a big deal. You are selling a stake of your company for $1 million. Remember that. Okay, Mike asks, how can someone navigate starting a startup if they have a questionable background that might deter investors? Well, I don't know what the questionable background you have is, so it's hard to answer. Everybody has issues. All of us, as we get older, have various issues, problems, challenges that are going to come out. The thing I would tell you is what I call get ahead of the story. Whatever your questionable thing is, once you get through maybe the initial meeting with investors start getting excited about what you're doing, you would want to have a conversation with potential investors to tell them whatever the issue is and get out ahead of it. Like, for example, there's a company that I'm advising. CEO is fantastic. His previous startup went bankrupt. Not because of him, but because of his investors. Went bankrupt. And what did he do? He got ahead of the story. In other words, he told the investors, his potential investors, about the issue before they found out for themselves. That's a basic rule when we are raising money, when we are in any sort of deal where we're trying to build confidence and trust in the other side. So that's what I'd recommend. Okay, we have Waleed again asking, with our startup, with an idea, market analysis, competitors analysis, and 2 years forecasting, yes, with a prototype, how to reach investors. What are the most important points to focus on? Okay, so as I said previously, in answering various variations of this question today, start networking. Ask every single person that you know, do you know anybody that might be interested in investing in my company? If they say no, fine, that's okay. If they're interested, that would be great too. And then when you start meeting people, and let's say no, and you meet somebody, you pitch them and they say, no, I'm not interested. Ask those people, do you know anybody who might be interested? That's what I would do always. Keep asking people. That's the smartest way you can do this. That's how I raised my money, was I just kept networking like crazy. My first investor came through that path where somebody who passed on our deal said to me, hey, I think I know this other investor who'd really like you guys. And I happened to know somebody at that particular fund, and away we went. And we had a term sheet within a month. So keep networking like crazy. That's what I would do. Okay, Andrea asks, or Andrea, not sure which way that is pronounced. What equity percentage should I give advisors in pre-seed? Should I require advisors to invest in my company? Okay, let me start with the second question first. No, you should not require advisors to invest in your company. If they want to, that's great. But remember, for advisors who are typically high net worth individuals, they're probably not going to be thinking they're going to be minting money, on your business. Now, if they get totally excited by it and they want to invest, great. I had one of my advisors do this. I had another advisor who became our only angel investor do something like this too. That's great. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But if you're asking somebody to be an advisor, then you want to give them equity for being an advisor. So what do typically advisors get? Typical advisory deal with somebody who's very active in your startup would be about 0.5%, vesting over a 2-year time period every month. That's if they're very active. If they're inactive and they're just lending their name, maybe 0.25%. Okay, Troy asks, would you ever advise a startup to seek capital pre-revenue? And what circumstances? Well, it's a great question. So let me explain some things. Number one, every startup needs money. We all need investors, whether they're ourselves, our friends, our family, or some sort of professional investor. Be it some sort of angel investor, venture capitalist, the bank, whatever it is. So we're all going to need money to get started. Could be myself, could be my co-founders that are going to give me the money, could be my friends, family, my parents, whatever. So yeah, you're always going to need money. Now, if we're going to raise money without any revenue, it gets more challenging. I have a video on the subject about how much traction do you need to raise money. I highly recommend you watch it. Can you do it? Yes, I did it. I know others that have done it. Typically, the recipe is, if you're going, and this is from external investors, because you all have to start with our own money at the beginning. But raising money from external investors, if we're trying to do that, typically you have to have some sort of name, some sort of experience previously. In other words, some sort of track record that you have, or else it's going to be really hard to do it. I hope that answers your question. Okay, Chrome Mondo asks, should you bring up investing the first time you meet somebody who invests? Schedule a meeting after them. How would you go about this? And what's a good opening line to lead with initially? Wow, that's a mouthful there. Investors are typically very busy people. So you don't have much time. You have to get right to it. So if you're interested in them investing, tell them, hey, I'm interested in you investing in my company. That's it. Because that's what they're there for. You don't have 3 or 4 meetings to make this happen. They don't want to do coffee with you unless there's a value to them. So if you think you're going to meet with somebody for them to invest, schedule a meeting for them to invest. You don't need opening lines. You don't need any of that. There is a bit of this, if we're talking about what do we say when we're pitching and we meet with somebody, that gets into a much more detailed subject. I have a video on that as well about how do you start a pitch meeting, because you don't have much time to start building a relationship with people. Literally, you have seconds to do it. So you can't waste time. You can't screw around. You got to get right to it. Okay, somebody asks me, what do I need to do to get you on a Zoom call to invest in my 2.5-year business? I'm going to be nice and polite about this. I rarely invest in startups. It's typically people that I know only in an industry that I'm very, very, very familiar with and know really well. So the odds of that happening are probably about 0. Sorry to burst your bubble on that. Okay, Darren asks, what minimum financial metrics and projections should be included in your first pitch deck? Okay, great question, Darren. I have a video on this too, about what should your financials look like. So my basic answer here is you should have a very simple pro forma income statement that you should have at the end of your pitch deck. Typically, you see people, they do these silly graphs that look like the up and to the right hockey sticks. And I don't think there's any utility or value in this. I'm kind of old school on this. So I really think you should have about 5-year projections on this. And you should list out there, you should have your revenue, just one line for revenue, one line for cost of goods sold. You should have cash on there, which isn't typically on an income statement, but you want it on there. Investment on there as well. And how much money you're making or losing. It should be maybe 6 or 7 lines. If you want a great example of this, look up LinkedIn's Series B pitch deck. It's online. It's fantastic. Reid Hoffman actually has a commentary on what he did right and what he did wrong. Highly recommended to look at that. And if you want to kind of copy a format that works really well, copy theirs. It's pretty good, pretty close to what I would do. So I hope that answers your question, Darren. Andrea asks, do startups that get accepted into Techstars or 500 startups have higher valuations, like YC startups? Well, YC is the best of the best, in my humble opinion, of these types of things. The other ones probably not as much. And again, just to keep repeating myself on this subject, early stage valuations are mechanical. I don't think there's much of a bump up from any of these firms, quite frankly. It's what have you done? And how much, what percentage of the company am I going to get? And what am I going to have to give up for it? You know, so there's some basic rules that happen depending upon stage of company. And that's how valuations are determined. So from my perspective, if you're going to join any one of these particular incubators, you want to get value out of it. That's the idea of this. Don't worry about bump up in valuation or any of this. It's, is this working with these people going to help me? Is it going to move me forward? Is it going to increase my chances of this company succeeding? If the answer is yes, and you're lucky enough to get invited in, then do it. If the answer is no, then don't do it. Very simple. Okay, JG asks, how do you hire without an HR department? For full-time employment, you still have to pay for healthcare, 401k, workers' comp, etc. How do you do all this legitimately on a shoestring budget? Well, that's a great question. Most startups do not have HR departments, JG. You're the HR department. However, what do? We typically farm out our payroll in one way, shape, or form. And with that, depending upon the firm that we're using, comes HR. Some sort of HR thing in terms of 401ks, healthcare here in the United States, as you're pointing out, all those types of things are included. It could be something like Gusto, for example, is a very low-end one that works really well. Insperity is another one, and these are kind of like pooled services. So you get pooled with all these other companies, and they have pretty good, actually pretty good plans, depending upon what you're trying to do. So that's how you do it. What I would do, typically the way that this is run for an early stage company, which is what you're describing, is typically your financial person, who I would not, by the way, recommend hiring a CFO at the beginning, but I would recommend hiring a part-time controller, maybe 1 day a week, kind of person. My person, Tina, who did this for us, she had the relationship, she knew how to set all this stuff up, and she set it up for us and had us going right from day one. And then we benchmarked for our healthcare plans and our 401k plans and all that. We benchmarked ourselves versus the public companies we were competing with. So we had a pretty good idea of what we were shooting for. So I hope that answers your question, JG. If you have any other questions, please put them in the chat box for me and I'll be happy to answer them. Justin asks, we are a tokenized financial digital investment bank. Sent our deck to the Finance X crypto VC firms. It's been 2.5 months, no interest, conversation yet. What should be our next step? Hard to network here. Okay, well, obviously, if you're sending your deck to people and they're not responding, you got to try something different. I don't know how many people you've sent your deck to, whether it's 1 or 50. But let's just go to the further end of this. Let's say you've sent it to 50 people and you don't get any responses. Okay, what does that tell me? It tells me that either your email isn't very good in terms of the way that you're sending things. So let's start there. I don't think I've done a video on this, but if you go to my website, brettjfox.com, I have a blog post I did on how to send an effective blind email to people, cold email as it's called. So if you're interested in that, go take a look at that in terms of how to do this well. That could be one issue. It could be that you're just too early. This is a classic problem. It is not guaranteed for any of you out there that are raising early stage funding that any investor is going to give you money if you don't have any traction. It's not how the world works. So most of the time, to get started, even to get angel funding, you're going to have to bootstrap it in some way, shape, or form. I hate to burst your bubble. It's just the way it is. So it could be you're too early, could be a combination of these things. Could be your pitch deck is a complete mess. Any one of those could be it. So you're going to have to just do some surgery here and figure out which one it is. That's my recommendation here. If you want to join my community, on the school website, which is called Zero to Pitch. It's all about helping entrepreneurs raise money and grow their startups. There's a free community which you can get to, and then there's a paid community if you want to go faster for $99 a month. So if you want to start with the free community, check it out, see what's there, see how much help you can get there. Community is pretty active and growing reasonably quickly right now. And then there's a paid community where I have daily office hours. And rather than doing this in a webinar format, it's in a meeting format, so you can talk to me. And in those office hours, I'll review pitch decks, talk to whatever's going on with the people that join those meetings. So if you want more help, those are some ways you can get more help. Okay, Jeff asks, should I launch my product on a crowdfund platform site like Indiegogo, or should I raise for investors? I'm going to only say the first part. There's no way to know from what you've asked. I don't know enough to know. What I can also tell you is I do have a little bias here because I've never done crowdfunding before. And I've never worked with anybody that's done crowdfunding before, so I don't know enough to know. So you're I can't really help you a hell of a lot on this. I wish I could, but you have to kind of just make some good judgments on what you're going to do. All these things require, regardless of whether I think you do an Indiegogo thing or you raise money directly from investors, it's got to be a good deal for everybody. It goes back to this previous thing that Justin was asking about. If you're sitting there at ground zero and you don't have any revenue and you've got nothing, then it's going to be very difficult to raise money from external investors. Very difficult. Just probably not going to happen realistically. So maybe Indiegogo makes sense, but again, I wouldn't put all my money on this. It's going to have to be really well thought out. If it's going to be some sort of video that you're going to do to show what you're doing, it's going to have to be something that's really well done. The competition for all of these things is really, really big. There's a lot of people out there that you're competing with. You've got to get this just right, to make this go. So that's the best answer that I have for you is it's got to be really well done for all of this, but I can't tell you which one to do. Okay, so Darren asks, what is a capped and not capped safe note? So safe notes, this is a tool invented by Y Combinator as an equity tool only, not a debt tool, but an equity tool where essentially this is for early stage companies where we don't know the valuation. We want the valuation to be tied to the next round. So in other words, I am going to give you, I'll let you invest $10,000, $20,000, whatever amount of money it is in my startup. And if there's a cap on the valuation, this means, in other words, the next round, there's a high mark that this, let's say that the company could be valued, I'll just make up a number, $5 million in the next round. Then if the company's valued at $7 million in the next round, and I get a 30% discount, I don't get a 30% discount on the 7, I get a 30% discount on the 5. So if it's capped at a certain number, which means I know that the most I'm going to pay, let's say it's a 30% discount, is the 30% discount on 5. So we can do that math. And that's going to say that my valuation is going to be $3.5 million or less. Even if the company is worth 7 million, 8 million, 9 million, $10 million, doesn't matter. If it's uncapped, then let's say it's worth $10 million. In that same scenario, I'm going to be my stock now is going to be valued at 7. Now you say that's better, but I'm going to get less shares, right? So instead of getting this 50% discount, or excuse me, a 65% discount if it was at 3.5, right? If that was the cap, right? I'm now going to have no discount. I'm going to essentially pay double because now I'm going to pay 30% of 10, which is 7. So I hope that answers your question, Darren. Okay. Okay, so Justin says, thank you. This is regarding the previous question regarding his pitch deck and why he's not getting any responses. If we revise the deck or email pitch, should we circle back to the same VCs and investors, also individuals on LinkedIn, and resend out even though I've sent 2 follow-ups already? Well, you can. You never know how it's going to go, so why not? That's one way to do it. I mean, you have to just keep at it. You have to be what's called a polite pest. But you really want to really be intellectually honest with yourself in terms of why you're not able to get any responses. Take a hard look. It may not be so easy just to fix your pitch deck. You want to go at this systematically, and you also want to understand if you've got nothing and you're sitting there at square one and you're asking people, I don't know how much money you're raising, by the way, either, which might fit into this. But if we're trying to raise a lot of money, and maybe Justin, you can put in the chat box here how much money you're trying to raise, because that may give us some clues. And if you have, by the way, anybody else have any other questions, you can put those in the chat box too, and that would be great. In either place, by the way, either on Zoom, in my chat box on Zoom, or the Q&A box on Zoom, or YouTube. One or the other doesn't matter, to me, and that would be great. I'm going to drink a little bit of water because I've been talking for 45 minutes straight. Okay. Justin, okay. So you're trying to raise 5 million. Okay. That's a lot of money. And do you have anything? Do you have a product yet? Do you have any revenue? Do you have any customers? Maybe you can answer those questions for us too, because I think this would be instructive for everybody on the call. You're welcome, Jeff. Okay, when's the next one of these? Typically, I do these every week on Wednesday. I vary the times, by the way. So this one is what, 6 o'clock Eastern time in the United States, which is late in the day in Europe, but early in the day in Australia. Darren asks me, how many pages should your TSB be? I don't know what a TSB is, or TSS. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but your TSS, well, I'm not sure. I don't know what that is. So maybe you can enlighten me on that. And Justin, if you want to tell me where your company's at, that might help me be able to answer your question too a little bit better. Not that's cool. I can totally understand. All right. Give you guys just a little bit more time. TSS is your pitch deck. How many pages should your pitch deck be? Um, if we're well, it depends upon how much time a meeting is, but here's a simple rule for everybody. If we have an hour meeting, we want our pitch to be no more than 30 minutes. If we have a 30-minute meeting, we want our pitch to be no more than 15 minutes. Assume about 2 minutes per slide. Divide the time for your pitch by 2 minutes, and that gives you the maximum number of slides that you should have in a pitch deck. So if it's a 30-minute meeting, then that says 30 minutes divided by 2 gives you 15 slides maximum. And you can download, by the way, or which you should be able to get. Just click the link, and you'll on my website, and you can get my startup pitch deck template for what slides should be included in there. All right, so Stephen asks, never heard a reply to my question. I don't think I saw the question, Stephen, just so you know. Marine industry investors. I'm in the recreational marine industry boats, excuse me. But I can't seem to find seed investors with an interest in that industry. Okay, you're going to have to hunt. I mean that literally hunt. You're going to have to go look for people in and around that industry. If you've been in that industry, Stephen, and you understand it, then you're looking for wealthy people who've already made money in and around that industry, in and around the boat industry, who are interested in investing. That's your tribe. And you just have to start networking like crazy and asking people like crazy. It's the same for any industry. Typically, everybody knows everybody. And you just want to keep networking and keep asking people, do you know anybody who can help me? And ask your co-founders, ask your friends, ask your present customers, your family, whatever. And that's the way you're going to find your money. Okay. Night Hiker asks, okay, we got about 10 more minutes, by the way. Remix marketing, guerrilla remix marketing, book or the original. Guerrilla marketing is a great book to get ideas on a shoestring. I'm just listening. Okay, well, that's nice. Thank you for sharing the book idea. Okay, Rose says, thanks, Brett. I have a treatment for aging. Okay, great. Yes, we have traction. We have institutional grade products. We'll be launching on blockchain networks and have a capital markets license already operating what we do with clients. Okay, well, that's better. So that's going to help you. Okay, we have several large B2B clients looking to list on our platform. And we will start KYC, approving clients within a month. Okay, so I want to clarify something here. Traction, in my way of thinking of things, in a very black and white sense, means customers, means revenue. It's super important. So if you have clients looking, that's great. That's a step before traction, but you got to get all the way through it. Okay, Dan from my Zero to Pitch Gold site says, what do you recommend for a financial slide section for a pre-revenue startup? Okay, so for you, Dan, a couple different things. Go through the course on Zero to Pitch Gold called Zero to Pitch. If you look in that course, one of the last modules is going to be all about developing your financial slide. That's the first answer. So go through that. It walks through that in detail for you about how to do it. The high level answer, which got asked earlier, is the best example of that I've seen is LinkedIn Series B pitch deck, which does a great job of this. And by the way, it does not matter that they were Series B and you're pre-revenue. You still have the same issues. I want to know as an investor what you think, how you think your business is going to scale. I want your forecast of what you think your revenue is going to be and how much money you're going to spend. So it's the same answer for both. Hope that helps, Dan. The patents are pending, but not issued. Can't get people to look at it as being not a scam. All right, not exactly sure, because this is the treatment for aging. Patents are an irrelevant thing for early stage companies. I would tell you as a general rule, nobody cares about it. And if you're trying to raise money, this is the chicken and the egg thing. It's really hard to raise money for you if you're an entrepreneur, if you do not have a track record already of being able to produce. It's very difficult, is what I would tell you. Okay, Nana asks, can investors buy out your idea or company pre-revenue for $5 million or more? If you have most industry players signed exclusively to your idea or company business, or can I sell it to them? Sure. Of course, these things happen all the time, maybe even more money. There are stories of companies with zero revenues get bought for hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. It's all a matter of what do people think the potential of your business is worth. Waleed says, thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Dan says, Brett, I just want to say that I really like your YouTube presentations because they are systematic and contain none of the YouTube fluff, junk, or pitchy music. Thanks. You're welcome. I appreciate that. Okay, Darren asks, do you need a TAM, SAM, SOM slide in a, I'm going to ignore this TSS pitch deck thing, but the TSS peach piss, the TSS peach, let me see, third time's a charm. The TSS piece of this. Yes. Yeah, you want to have a market slide that goes over your total available market and your served available market. Yes, you want that. Okay, Rose says, I'm pitching a pharmacist drug designer. Okay. I don't think the rules change. It's nice that you have patents pending. That's great, but I still think, you've got to tell people why you're better, what's unique about you. That's always the same thing. What's the problem you're solving that hasn't been solved before? And what are you going to do that's so much better than what's in the marketplace and everybody else? Those are the basic rules of being able to raise money. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes here. And if you want to put your questions in the chat box on either Zoom or YouTube, that's great. And I'll be happy to answer them for you there. Okay. Give you guys a little bit more time. I'm going to drink a little bit more water. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go say going once, going twice, going a third time. And it looks like we are done for the day. Okay, thanks everybody so much. We'll be back here next Wednesday. And everybody take care of themselves. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.